Good morning, all. Look at these movies. E.T., Les Misérables, Victor Hugo masterpiece, Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. We see them all as masterpieces. But why? Is it because they're action-packed? Of course not. Because they offer suspenseful plots with many twists? Yes, but to a certain extent only. Because they are fun? Not necessarily. They are masterpieces because they talk to us. They talk about our inner desire, what we hope for, what we reject. And that's why we pay so much attention to masterpieces, because they talk about things that deeply concern us. To make a long story short, they talk about our search for personal happiness. Masterpieces also talk about values, ethics. We know that values are important. They are the unspoken rules that guide communities. And unconsciously, we think that we could achieve personal happiness if the world is guided by values we believe in. Authors of masterpieces are telling us one thing. Such a more beautiful world is possible. But how to achieve it? Masterpieces are written to show that good decisions and proper actions, even at the individual level, can steer the world in the right direction. They also show us how wrong decisions can lead to misery. Authors of masterpieces, through their works of art, want to alter our behaviors. They want to change our misconceptions, to erase our ignorances. In short, they want us to think. And this is why we see them as masterpieces, because they give us hope for a better life and they tell us how it could be achieved. And I believe similar masterpieces will emerge in our industry. Games with a meaning, games with depth, games that make you think. My name is Pascal Luban. I'm a creative director and game designer, and I work as a freelance. I started working on games over 26 years ago. The first AAA game I worked on as a lead game designer was Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare. Then I worked as lead level designer on the multiplayer version of 2 Splinter Cell games, and I was creative director on Wanted: Weapons of Fate. Eventually, the market changed focus, and most of my clients asked me to work on mobile games. So for a good 10 years, I worked essentially on mobile titles, either as designer or consultant. Of course, during that period, I did work on a few console games as well. Activision commissioned me to work as game and level design consultant on 3 hunting games. Those games were developed by Fun Labs in Romania. And more recently, I was design consultant on Vigor, the shoot and loot titles developed by Bohemia Interactive. But enough about me, now let's go back to our topic. Games that make you think. Am I dreaming? Do I fantasize? No. Such games already exist. They are the forerunner of games that make you think, and I will show you 2 examples. First, I'll talk about This War of Mine. This War of Mine was developed by and published by 11-Bit Studios. This game is about the survival of a group of civilians trapped in a modern city under siege. Sounds familiar? It does. Recent history has shown us it can happen nearly next door. Think of the siege of Sarajevo and more recently Aleppo in Syria. The game offers a strong gameplay mixing management and stealth. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Food. I lived through hell with these people. We were a group. We would do anything to stay alive. I will never forget those days. Things you see in war stay with you forever.
A kiedy przyjdzie także po mnie zegarmistrz światła purpurowy, by mi zawełtać błękit w głowie, to będę jasny i gotowy. Spłynąc przede mnie dni na przestrzał, zgasną podłogi i powietrza. Na wszystko jeszcze raz popatrzę. Pójdę, nie wiem gdzie na zawsze.
So, what is this game telling us? First, of course, it is showing us the horrors that civilians have to endure during a war. Remember, we are in an industry where many of our products tend to make commonplace of war, if not to glorify it. By showing the dark side of war, this game is already making a strong statement. But the game goes further. A movie or a documentary could show us the same thing. But the game offers a different perspective. It turns us into actors of the drama and put us in situations where we have to make decisions. Dramatic decisions. For instance, if one member of your party falls sick, what decision will you take when you find medicines in a house occupied by an elderly couple? Would you rob them? Would you kill them? Or would you simply turn away? It is because you have to take this type of decision, because you are facing dramatic situations, that you develop a much stronger involvement and understanding of the drama. As a result, you develop empathy toward the protagonist of the drama. And what are the benefits of generating empathy toward game's character? First, the game becomes the carrier of a message, exactly like a true masterpiece. Second, it creates a strong player experience because it generates emotion that will move you. This War of Mine succeeds in offering great gameplay and in making you think about what trapped civilians have to endure in a war. Let's take a look now at the second example. This one in a completely different genre. It is a sequel of The Last of Us, and that's a heavy one. This is the recent game, and some of you might not have played it yet, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. Let's talk about The Last of Us first. I'm talking here of the first game in the series. So it's a horror survival game taking place in a contemporary environment. Some sort of plague has turned most people into monsters, and what is left of mankind survives in fortified compounds. Outside those, the world is totally hostile. The main characters are Ellie, a young girl who seems to be the only person immune to the infection, and Joel, some sort of mercenary who gets the mission to escort Ellie to a group of people called the Fireflies. The Fireflies believe they can use Ellie's ability in order to develop a vaccine. Nearly all the game depicts the journey through dangerous lands, fighting either monsters or bandits. This game is memorable, and again, I'm talking of the first one, okay? This game is memorable because you build empathy toward the two main characters. Not only you understand their feelings, but you end up feeling the same emotions, the same fondness they feel toward each other, the same anguish also. I will not say more because I don't want to spoil the game for you. Now let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 takes place right after the end of the previous game. I won't give you any more details, but let me tell you why I found this game exceptional. The plot itself, the script, is conventional. To a large extent, it is written to support the level design. It justifies where you have to go and for what reason, and so on. But the authors wanted to pass a message. Revenge consumes you. Forgiveness gives you freedom. Many games or movies talk about people, communities, or nations fighting one another for a simple reason: revenge. They carry the idea that revenge is natural, that revenge is the normal thing to do. But The Last of Us, Part 2 is different. It makes you realize that revenge could be the wrong thing to do. And because of a unique narrative twist I will not detail now, you live that message like a pain in your heart. This game made me think, and I think it did the same to millions of players. Now, if we want to design games that make players think, we need to draw inspiration from authors of masterpieces. To make us think, they must communicate with us, their audience. They must make us receptive to their ideas. To do so, they use a universal language: emotions. Emotion is a language that is more effective than words to convey ideas, to describe the reality of a given situation, to share drama. It is because we respond to a story with emotions that we internalize the message of the author. So to build a masterpiece, you must generate strong emotions. I believe we will see more games that generate strong emotions. I'm not talking of games that rely entirely on storytelling, games that offer little gameplay such as visual novels, otome games, or so-called walking simulators. I'm talking of games with real gameplay that mainstream gamers enjoy. I believe we will see more and more games featuring real gameplay that will be designed to generate strong emotions. I believe they represent a future path of development for the game industry. And several forces will push in that direction. First, the growing weight of mature players. Gamers that were 20 years old 20 years ago are now 40. They have families. They are more aware of the world around them. They will naturally be attracted by games with characters they can believe in. Games with situations, drama they can relate to. Games where they feel empathy toward their characters. Second, publishers and studios will realize that quality storytelling improves the game experience and therefore improves the commercial potential of what they publish. And third, the game industry will give rise to creative directors and game designers that want to express themselves, like in any other media: books, plays, movies, songs. So, how to create a game that will move your audience? First, find a theme you want to talk about, a message you want to convey to your audience. This theme has to move you. If it doesn't move you from the emotional point of view, it will not move others. Second, like for any games, define its key components: the core gameplay, the game mode, the business model, the USP, and so on. And third, start working on the three components of a good storytelling. Now, what are they? First, the script. That is the unfolding of the story. Second, the main characters, in particular, the hero. And third, the environment. That is the time, location, or special context where the script takes place. Let's briefly talk about the script. The script tells us what happens in the story. But a good script is not a succession of action scenes. This is a common mistake. A good story is built around the challenges the main character is facing and how he or she copes with them. As a reminder, a good script is built around 4 stages. Stage 1, The early stage shows the main character in a routine situation. Life goes by as usual. Stage 2, something happens and push the main character into a dramatic situation. Stage 3, the struggle. We are now in the heart of the drama. The main character struggles to cope with the situation. Actually, stage 3, should make up the bulk of the script. And finally, stage 4. The main character will emerge out of the drama and enter a new peaceful situation. But the main character's value or understanding of the world might have changed. This concludes a good script. Of course, there are plenty of exceptions to this 4 stages template, but keeping it in mind is a good starting point to write a good script and avoid writing bad ones. Let's talk now about the characters, the second component of a story. Characters include the hero, the bad guy, when there is one, and secondary characters. Today, I will just focus on the main character, the hero. Modern heroes, they have flaws. They can even be bad guys. But what makes them a hero is that they do the right things and they defend values we believe in. They also have charisma. They end up being leaders we want to follow. Finally, let's talk briefly about the environment. The environment is a stage where the script takes place. It can be a location, like the city of New York, a period in history, like the Italian Renaissance, a major event, like the fall of Constantinople in 1453, or a group of people, like the members of a sect. The goal of the environment is to support the drama of the script. For instance, if my script is about a group of passengers that survive the crash of their plane, a mountain environment will make their situation more dramatic than a tropical island. I think you get the message. So let's return now to the steps to follow if you want to design a game that will generate emotions. This is step 4, where you need to work on the overall credibility of your environment, characters and script. Here, don't attempt to be too realistic, but try to be credible. There's much more to say about writing good storytelling for games, but this is not the purpose of my talk. So I will go for my conclusion now. I believe that the tools used by authors of masterpieces can help us make better games. Well-defined characters, meaningful scripts, quality environments. Those tools can be adapted to game storytelling. But we are also citizens. We all belong to communities, our family, our town, our country, or group of countries, mankind. And what we say in our games contribute to those communities, because like any other media, we have the power to shape people's opinion. Also, I would like to remind you that engaging players to think is not limited to the promotion of positive values. It is also about fighting what I call toxic ideas, like torture and so on. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found this talk inspiring. I publish blog entries on Gamma Sutra on a regular basis. So if you want to keep informed of my latest publication, follow me on Twitter. I will not spam you with meaningless content, I promise. And thanks again, and I hope to talk to you soon.
All right, and we already have questions. Please also be brave to ask any questions in chat. Now there is a question from Ivan. How do you make a script breakdown? Which tools you use?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say hello to all of you, to say it live. I'm very happy to share with all of you my thoughts on the game industry I couldn't make the trip to Moscow this time, but I'd love to return. So hopefully the next time, maybe in 1 year or two, we'll all be together. So to answer your question, writing a script, it's very simple. Basically, I'm not an artist. I don't draw. So I just use, a text, any text editing software. That's all. I would say there are tools to help you indeed write on script, but those are really for advanced works. For most of the scripts, most of the stories we write for games, basically I just use a word processing software.
Okay, great. And the next question is it important to follow the modern trends and to include into the plot the characters from some minorities, religious, ethnical, or sexual, etc.? Would it be better for the game or not?
That's a very interesting question. Well, personally, I wouldn't force it. I mean, there are 2 points. First of all, it is, do you need it for the stories of the game? But not necessarily. I mean, it depends on the theme of your game. And then also there's the will of the author. I mean, let's not forget that people who design games, are authors. They have also their own vision of the world. So they can use the game, to share this vision. So if, let's assume, I was very, in favor of helping some minorities, so I would probably include them in my game. I would do it in a subtle way, but I would do it. But if it's not, my objective, I just wouldn't do it. So I think on this point, you have to feel, free. Just obviously don't be be respectful with everybody, okay? But I wouldn't be forced myself, to include minorities, if I don't feel like.
Okay, great. And the next one. Could you please mention the most memorizable characters from mobile games of 2021?
Mobile games?
Yeah, mobile. Or
Well,
maybe
actually,
PC games. What do you prefer? So it's up to you.
Well, I mean, to me, the one that struck my mind, it's the one I described in The Last of Us Part 2. It's the character of Ellie. Again, I don't want to spoil the end of the story, but this is probably the one that marked me the most in the past maybe 2 years.
Okay, great. So now I'd like to tell a big thanks to Pascal for such great information and really useful information.